Welcome to the Wind Up with Will. I'm your host, Will, and today we're going to be talking about the MLB season that's currently going on at the moment. I'm doing my predictions for the season. I'm a little late, couple weeks late, but still got some predictions for the season. So I'll just go into my predictions that I have for this upcoming season. As you could tell, I might be a little biased. I'm a Mets fan, so I'm repping my New York Mets here at Mets jersey. So I'm a Mets fan, huge baseball fan. So this channel probably going to be more baseball oriented, but I still love all kinds of other sports. So hopefully I'll be covering other sports as well in the future, doing my predictions, thoughts, opinions on other sports. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into my predictions. So I'm going to start with the National League first. Got it over here on my trusty phone. Kind of new to the podcast thing, so don't have a lot. This is not very high budget, as you can probably tell. So we're starting out with my National League predictions. So I'm gonna go in order that I think the teams will finish in the National League and in the American League. So with the number one overall seed in the National League, winning the National League East, I have, you could probably guess, the New York Mets. The Mets are just, they have the highest payroll in baseball this season, the highest payroll ever. Yes, the team might have some injury risks, especially at pitcher. But if the team can stay healthy, that's a really great team. Losing Edwin Diaz in the World Baseball Classic, having him get hurt in that and not being able to be ready for the season, there's a slim chance he might be back late in the season. More than likely, he's not going to pitch this year. So that definitely does hurt. The Mets still have a decent bullpen. They've got a really great starting pitching staff if they can stay healthy. And they have a really deep lineup that draws a lot of walks, fouls a lot of pitches off, makes pitchers work. And that is what you want out of a lineup. You don't want necessarily a lineup that just strikes out a bunch. You want a lineup that gets hits, that draws walks, makes the pitchers work. And that's what the Mets do better than arguably any other lineup in baseball. So they're going to be a hard team to beat throughout the season and into the playoffs. So they're a team you want to look out for. They're a dangerous team. I'm going to pause a second. My laptop is running a little low. I'm going to plug this in. There we go. Sorry about that. We're going to continue. We're going to go to our number 2 seed is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Oh, and before I move on, you're probably going to, a lot of people are probably going to be voting on me. Will, why didn't you pick the Phillies? Why didn't you pick the Braves? I know both those teams are talented. We're going to get to those teams here in a second in my predictions. So by continuing, the number 2 seed in the National League, winning the National League West, is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I know people are going to be hating on this too. Like, Will, you should pick the Padres. They're arguably the best team in baseball, best lineup in baseball. I understand. I feel you. That the Padres are a great team. Don't get me wrong. Great lineup. Got good pitching. I just think the Dodgers have more experience. And I know the Padres beat the Dodgers last year. I know they did. But that's one series. It's not a 162-game season again. It's hard for me to bet against the Dodgers. Like, until the Padres can actually win the West, it's hard to go against the Dodgers here. So I'm picking the Dodgers to win again in the NL West. I do think it will be close, though. I think the Padres will give them a real good run for their money. It's going to be a fun season in the NL West. The number 3 seed, I've got winning the National League Central, the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, out of any of the divisions in the National League, this is the one that is kind of a toss-up in any way, and that no one really looks at any of the teams and just kind of goes, oh, that team's going to win automatically. even though I'm sure the individual fans of each of those teams feel like their team's going to win the division. I think the Cardinals are the better team. They have the better lineup. They have great. It's a great defensive team. I cannot talk about how great of a defensive team this is. I think almost their entire infield won the Gold Glove last year, and I think they had two outfielders win the Gold Glove. They're just a really good defensive team. Getting Wilson Contreras in the offseason was a great pickup for them at catcher to replace Yadier Molina. Great successor to Yadier Molina. Cardinals are going to be set for like 30 years at catcher. Their weakness is their pitching staff. Their pitching staff is not great. That is what hurts them, and what I think is really going to prevent them from making any kind of deep run if they make the postseason. Just because their pitching staff's just not great. When Adam Wainwright, who's 40 years old, is arguably your best pitcher, it's going to be a little harder. Now, don't get me wrong, they've got some other good pitchers like Miles Michaelis, and if Flaherty can come back, they've got some potential there. I just don't like it as much as other teams' pitching staffs. Let's get into the wild cards. The number 4 seed in the National League, the number 1 wild card. I got the San Diego Padres. I think they will win over 100 games and still lose the West to the Dodgers, and I'll tell you why. I guess I should have maybe said more about the Dodgers earlier. The Dodgers have more experience. I think they're going to make moves at the trade deadline to make themselves better. They've still got good pitching. They find a way to have good depth. They have a really good farm system, so like any of their holes that they have, they just fill it with someone coming up through the minors. Now, right now, they do kind of look a little weaker than they have been in years past, but I just think they have enough depth there where if anything goes wrong, they can just find a way to fill it. So, and I think that's what is going to hold the Padres back a bit. Not having Tatis earlier in the season, I think, is going to hurt them. Blake Snell has injury troubles. He has real trouble staying healthy. They don't have Joe Musgrove right now. Josh Hader was not Josh Hader at all last year, even when he was with the Brewers. So that's something to look out for. The other night against the Mets, he was very shaky. So I think the Padres are going to be great. I think they're going to win 100 games. I just feel like there's going to be enough hiccups in their season to prevent them from winning the West. A few games behind the Dodgers, but they're going to be better than a lot of other teams. That's why I got them at the number 1 wild card spot with over 100 wins. The number 2 wild card in the National League, I've got the Philadelphia Phillies, the team that represented the National League in the World Series last year. They are a great lineup, arguably the best lineup in baseball. When you have Kyle Schwarber, Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, and then you go out and add Trey Turner, who, if Team USA had won the World Baseball Classic, he would have been the MVP of the tournament, hands down, for them. That guy put on a show in the World Baseball Classic, and I think he's going to have a terrific season this season, perhaps even contend for an MVP. And he's going to have to for the Phillies to have a good season because they're not going to have Harper at the moment. He's still recovering from Tommy John surgery. Rhys Hoskins went down in spring training with an ACL injury. But they're still a great team. JT Realmuto's undoubtedly the best catcher in baseball right now. They've got good pitching in their rotation. Zach Wheeler is going to contend for a Cy Young this year. Aaron Nola contended for a Cy Young a few years ago. He's still got that dog in him, I guess. He's still a good pitcher. Adding Taijuan Walker was a good pickup for them, the starting pitching. He was a good starting pitcher for the Mets over the last couple of years. So the Phillies are going to be good. The NL East, man, is going to be a dogfight. And then the third wild card in the National League, the 6th seed, I've got the Atlanta Braves. Now, don't get me wrong, people are probably going to hate on me for not picking the Phillies or Braves to win the East over the Mets. I just think the Mets have a better starting pitching than both of those teams. The Mets have spent more money. I think the Mets have a deeper team overall. The Phillies having Harper out for a decent amount of the season and going to have Hoskins out for the entirety of the year. That hurts them. I don't think their bullpen is as good for the Phillies. But the Braves, A lot of people. This is the team that a lot of people are picking to win the East, hands down. A lot of people are picking them to go to the World Series again. I just don't see it. Out of all of the teams in baseball last year, besides the Oakland Athletics, the Braves did nothing to add to their team. They just lost players. They lost Kenley Jansen, who saved like 40 games last year for them. They lost Dansby Swanson, their cornerstone shortstop for like the past 7 years. The offseason before that, they lost Freddie Freeman. I don't think Matt Olson is good, and I think by the end of the contract with Matt Olson, they're going to say they wish they had Freddie Freeman instead of him. That's just my prediction on this. They do have Ronald Acuna Jr., who I think is one of the best players in baseball, and he's kind of being underrated at the moment just because, like last season, the last couple seasons, he's been injured. Well, he got injured in 21, came back in 22, and didn't have as good a year last year, and at least in home runs, was a really good player. But I think he's going to jump back into the scene this year with perhaps contending for another 40-40 season. I know he was on the verge of that a few years ago. I don't see the Braves winning the East. I don't see them being better than the Phillies. I think they're going to be a good team. They've got a lot of good talent, a lot of young good talent. They've got a good young pitching as well. I just don't think I don't think they added enough where the Phillies and Mets did, and they just have some holes. I have issue with their starting pitching. Their starting pitching is good, but it's young, it's inexperienced. Soroka's coming back from injury right now. They've got Max Fried, who's had a little bit of hamstring hiccup early in the season, and he's really good. But I've seen this as a Mets fan. When the Mets had this young core of starting pitching, it didn't go as planned for the Mets. None of them were ever healthy at the same time. When you had Harvey, Syndergaard, Wheeler, DeGrom, Matz, none of them were ever healthy at the same time. And I kind of think this is what's going to be with the Braves. One or two of these guys might end up being decent, having decent careers in MLB. I don't see all of them having that. And Charlie Morton's a good, experienced pitcher to have on that staff. I don't see this staff being a staff to carry them to another World Series. I think they had a good. They've had a good run the past few years of dominating the East. I think that ends this year. They didn't add enough. Is what it comes down to. Really, they didn't add enough when the Mets and Phillies did. So that's why they're the last team in the playoffs for me in the National League. Okay, going on to the American League, we've got as my number one overall seed. I have the Houston Astros as the number one overall seed in the American League, winning the American League West. They've shown over the past 5-6 years at this point. They're the best team in baseball year in and year out. They just find ways to be good, even with losing Verlander to the Mets. I don't see them. I don't see them falling off. They have good pitching. They have good young pitching. They have a great lineup. Losing Jose Altuve in the World Baseball Classic, that's going to hurt them. I think he's their best player. Yordan Alvarez, though, is a phenomenal hitter. Kyle Tucker is a budding superstar in this game. Dusty Baker's Hall of Fame manager. They've got it all. I will say, though, the one thing that could go against them this year is I think the American League West is better now than it's been over the past few years with the Angels trying to get better, trying to make the season with those two phenomenal players in Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. You've got the Rangers that have been making moves over the past couple of years. The Mariners made the playoffs last year. You've got a lot better American League West that's going to be contending for the playoffs. So I think that might be the only thing going against them, but still, I just think they're the best team in baseball. Since 2017, they've played in 4 World Series. They won 2 of them. They've played in, I think, one other American League Championship Series in that year. So in the last 6 years, they made the ALCS like 5 times and made it to 4 World Series and won 2 of them. They're a pretty good team. They find ways to win. So it's hard to bet against them for me. In the American League East, winning the American League East, my number 2 seed. It's going to shock some people here. Going with the Toronto Blue Jays. You might say, well, why not the Yankees? Well, to me, the Yankees have some issues. They have some flaws. Some of that comes to pitching, and some of that also comes to the depth of their lineup. But we're not going to talk about the Yankees just in full yet. We're going to talk about the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays have a I'm sorry if the camera's a bit shaky. I've got my laptop here set on a tray, so if I'm accidentally hitting this tray and making everything shake, I'm sorry about that. But I've got the Blue Jays winning the East just simply because I think they're a better team. They have better pitching. They've got a deep lineup. And I think it's going to come together this year for them. The Yankees have kind of run the East the past few years. I don't see the Yankees doing that again this year, just because. Well, I'll get to that in a second when we get to the Yankees. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The Blue Jays have great pitching in it with Alek Manoah, Chris Bassett, Hyun-Jin Ryu. They've got a good pitching staff there. There's like a gnat. Yeah, they've got good starting pitching. They've got a phenomenal lineup. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, George Springer. Like, they're just a good team. They're going to win a lot of games. The American League East is just as tough as the National League East, if not tougher. So it will be a dogfight for them. The Yankees and Rays are going to give them a great run, but I've got the Blue Jays winning the American League East. Oh, and Jordan Romano, I should mention him, their closer. He's a really good closer. I had him in fantasy last year. Really helped me a lot. He's a good closer. The Blue Jays are going to win a lot of games. They're going to win a lot of games. Not as many as the Astros, but they're going to win a lot of games. And third in the American League, I've got the AL Central winners as the Chicago White Sox. Now, this is a team that has kind of fallen short the past couple years under Tony La Russa. And a lot of people thought he would push them over the edge. That was kind of including me. I don't see it happen. I don't see it failing for them this year, like it has the past few years. They've had injury problems and some bad managerial decisions and some bad general managerial decisions. But they're the team that's going to win the AL Central this year, and it's because they're going to find a way to stay a little more healthy this year. They also have good starting pitching. Lucas Giolito, Dylan Cease, I think that's how you say it, or is it Cleese? Cleese? I believe it's Cleese. Yeah, Dylan Cleese. I'm gonna look this up. I don't know. I'm having a moment where I just can't remember this guy's name. I'll look this up real quick. I think it's Dylan Cleese. Cease. I don't know where the heck I got Cleese. Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease. I don't know. I had a Charles Barkley moment there. Dylan Cease. You've got Lucas Giolito, Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech. They added Mike Clevenger. They've got good starting pitching. And Liam Hendricks, he's recovering from cancer at the moment. Prayers to him. Hope he gets through it. If he can come back, that would be a great addition to their bullpen. I think they're going to find a way to stay healthy this year. They're going to win the AL Central. The AL Central, of all the divisions in baseball, I think is like the most toss-up division where it feels like any team in that division could win the division. Now, I know that the Tigers and Royals are probably not going to win that division because they're just absolutely horrible teams. Sorry to say it, Tigers and Royals fans. You're horrible. The team's horrible. But the Indians, Twins, and White Sox are all really good teams that, well, maybe not all good teams. They're all decent teams that have a shot at making the playoffs. Twins have made moves the past few years, getting like Carlos Correa. If they can keep Byron Buxton healthy, that would be good for them. And the Indians, I know they're not the Indians anymore, but it's just force of habit at this point. The Indians have won the AL Central last year. They're a good team. They've got arguably Hall of Fame manager in Francona. But I don't know. There's something about me that doesn't want to pick them again to win it. I think last year they kind of went under the radar and won. And so because they won last year, people are picking them to win again this year. I don't think it'll be the case. They've got Shane Bieber. They got Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan. They've got a good team. but I don't see it working out for them. I feel like just I don't think it's going to be them. I think it's going to be the White Sox. If the White Sox can stay healthy, they will make the playoffs. And in my wild card for the American League, my number 4 seed, I've got the New York Yankees, the team I was talking about earlier. The Yankees, to me, I don't think they're going to win the East. Because they don't have the pitching, they don't have the holes, or they've got holes that need to be filled, specifically in their lineup. Like, Aaron Judge is arguably one of the best players in baseball, and he's really the only great hitter in the lineup. Anthony Rizzo might get in the Hall of Fame one day, but he's not what he once was. I mean, he's going to hit 30 home runs just because he's playing in Yankee Stadium that's small, but he's like a 250 hitter now. Giancarlo Stanton, if he can stay healthy, he's a great hitter, a lot of home runs, but he's not going to hit for high average, and he has trouble staying healthy. Their lineup is just not that great. Now, Anthony Volt might be a great addition to them as a rookie. He might be able to give him a jump spark in that lineup. But I just have trouble seeing how that lineup is going to just dominate other teams. Like, I know Judge can put them on their back. I also don't understand why they batted Judge like second a lot last year. Like, he led MLB. He was tied with Pete Alonso for leading MLB in RBIs, and he batted second. Like, imagine how many more runs he could have driven if he batted like third or fourth. So I just don't see them being the better team in the American League East. But I think they're still a good enough team. They're going to make some moves at the trade deadline. They're going to be competitive. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be the top wild card team, I think, in the American League. That leads me to my second wild card team in the American League. That's the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays, they just find ways to win games. They find ways to win games. Randy Arozarena he's a really good player, and he has his moments of clutchness in the spotlight. And I think the World Baseball Classic is going to spark a great year in him, and he's going to maybe be a dark horse for the MVP. I don't think he'll win it. There's too many good players in the American League. But I think he'll be like a dark horse kind of player that can contend for the wild card, or what am I saying? Contend for an MVP, or at least get a few votes. Maybe he'll finish like 5th or 6th, but he'll get some votes, I think, for MVP. They're just a good team. They find ways to win games. I like to compare them to like the New England Patriots of baseball, except they're without the 6 World Series titles. They just find ways to get guys that no one else wants and make them fit in their system and win games with them. So I've got them as the 5th seed. I don't think they're going to be better than some of the big spending teams like the Astros or Yankees, but I think they will make the playoffs. They're gonna, and if you've been following baseball so far this season, you would have seen they got out to a 13-0 start before getting beat the other day. Great start to the season. They might prove me wrong by winning the American League East. I hope they do. I'd like to see the Rays be successful. But I've got them as my 5th seed in the American League. My 6th seed in the American League, the last wild card spot, goes to the Los Angeles Angels. Now, this is a team a lot of people are looking to make the playoffs just because they want to see Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. It's kind of more of a fantasy situation than perhaps reality. But I think they've had some additions that could make their team better, like Patrick Sandoval. He pitched for them last year. He looks like he's a good pitcher. He pitched well in the World Baseball Classic. I think he's going to be a good pitcher for them again this year. Shohei Ohtani, we're competing for the Cy Young and the MVP. Cy Young as a pitcher, and the MVP as a pitcher and a hitter. Mike Trout's going to be contending for the MVP as well. I think Shohei Ohtani will win the MVP more than likely, and Trout will come in second. Maybe those two guys are going to be competing for the MVP. They're going to find a way to make the playoffs. I think the Mariners, they made the playoffs last year. I don't see the Mariners making it again. They had a negative run differential last year, and they made the postseason despite a negative run differential. I don't see that happening again. They've got to make some changes there. the Mariners have a good team. I think they're going to be in contention, and they have the players there to be successful for a while. I just don't see them making the playoffs again this year. I think the Angels are going to make kind of a jump, be a little better this year, maybe make some moves at the trade deadline, because if they want to keep Shohei, they've got to make the playoffs. So those are my picks where the teams will finish in the regular season. So I'm going to go through quickly how I think the playoffs are going to go. If I can get that back, pulled that back up. So the National League, in the wild card round, I've got the Braves beating the Cardinals 2-1. And when I'm saying these are the games they win in the series, not any kind of score, but how the series will go. Braves over Cardinals 2-1, and the Padres over the Phillies 2-1 in the wild card round. So I got the Braves and Padres advancing. In the NL divisional round, I have the Mets over the Braves 3-2. That will be a great playoff series if those teams meet. They've had some playoff series in the past. Those are some heated rivals in the Mets and Braves. As a Mets fan, I know that, and I have a lot of family who are Braves fans. So it's going to be a fun season and a fun playoffs. But I've got my Mets beating the Braves 3-2 in the divisional round. Dodgers will beat the Padres 3-2, get the revenge on them from last season in the divisional round. And the NLCS, I have the Mets over the Dodgers 4-2. Well, I don't think I said how the series would go. So when the Dodgers will beat the Padres 3-2. Mets will beat the Braves 3-2. And then I have the Mets winning the NLCS over the Dodgers 4-2 to go to the World Series again. In the American League, the wild card round, I have the White Sox over the Angels 2-1. The Yankees over the Rays 2-1. In the divisional round, I have the Blue Jays over the White Sox 3-1. Astros over the Yankees 3-1. That will be a fun playoff series if those teams meet again. That is a budding, heated rivalry between the Astros and Yankees, and I think we all know why. Sorry, it's getting kind of windy and stormy outside. In the ALCS, I have the Astros over the Blue Jays 4-3. In the World Series, I've got my Mets over the Astros 4-3. Totally unbiased perspective right there. Totally unbiased. And the World Series MVP, I've got Brandon Nimmo. Guy's going to get a lot of walks in the World Series. That's all I can say. And I know this video is going a little longer than expected, so I'm just going to go through who I think will win season awards as well this year. In the National League, I have the MVP being Manny Machado. He was runner-up last year, had a phenomenal year. I think he's going to win it this year, especially with the Padres winning over 100 games in my prediction. Cy Young, I got Sandy Alcantara repeating. Phenomenal pitcher. He won it last year. It's kind of a cop-out to go with him again, but I think he is arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now, so why not go with him again? Rookie of the Year, I've got Kodai Senga of the Mets. He's a pitcher just brought over from Japan. He's got a 3-0 start on the season right now, and this is not me picking him because he has a 3-0 start. This is my prediction before the season started picking him. But he's showing that that my prediction might be right. So far, at least so far. Manager of the Year, I got Rob Thompson of the Phillies. A lot of people said he should win it last year, but Buck Showalter deserved to win it last year. Totally, once again, unbiased opinion there. As you can tell by this blue and orange I'm wearing, unbiased opinion. But Rob Thompson's going to win it this year. The Phillies are going to have a phenomenal season and be competitive. I see him winning it, especially with the injuries they've had, and I think they're going to have a good season again. I can see him winning Manager of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year, I've got Cody Bellinger with the Cubs, and this is based a little more off of in season, so the 2 weeks into the season so far. He's shown he's had some moments so far in the beginning of the season. Robbed a home run, Jason Hayward hit a home run. Why not pick him? I think he might gain a little bit what he was a few years ago. I know the Cubs fans are hoping for that. And then in the American League, I've got the MVP, hands down, it's going to be Shohei Ohtani. A lot of people said he should have won it last year. It's hard to win it when a guy sets the MLB all-time home run record, 62 home runs. I know some people are gonna hate on me for saying that, but Judge is the all-time home run record. But Shohei Ohtani, phenomenal player as a hitter and a pitcher. It's going to be hard to prevent him from winning it this year. As my Rookie of the Year goes in the American League, I got Masataka Yoshida. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's an outfielder for the Boston Red Sox, player brought over from Japan. A lot of Japanese players making the jump here recently, and I think we're going to see a few more in the coming years. He was a great player for Team Japan in the World Baseball Classic. I see him having a good year, and with Boston, he's a lefty hitter. See him shooting a lot of balls the other way off the green monster. I think he's going to have a great year. Now, there's also a lot of great Rookie of the Year candidates in the National League and American League. People like Jordan Walker in the National League. In the American League, you have Anthony Volpe, who might just win it because he's a Yankee. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how these rookies go. And I think Masataka Yoshida is my pick. I think he's going to be a little more experienced than some of the other rookies in the American League because he's played in the highest level of Japanese professional baseball in the NPB. I think is the league. There's the MPO. I think it's MPB. He's a great player. Started for Team Japan. I see him having a little more experience and being able to battle maybe the hardships of a full MLB season better than some of the true rookies that are 20-year-old kids coming up. Manager of the Year, I got Phil Nevin for the Los Angeles Angels. If they make the playoffs, their manager is going to win Manager of the Year. That's something they've been looking to try and get back to since 2014. That's eluded their grasp. They're going to get back to it this year, and their manager is going to win Manager of the Year. And my comeback player of the year, this is no surprise, is Jacob deGrom. Love the guy. Wish the Mets could have kept him. Phenomenal pitcher. I think he's going to show that he is not injury prone as a lot of people thought. And he's going to pitch close to a full season, 32, 33 games, contend for the American League Cy Young. But he won't win it. But I think he will come close. He's going to show he's still a great pitcher and contend for not only comeback player of the year, but the Cy Young. Which makes me realize I think I skipped over the American League Cy Young pick. The American League Cy Young pick, I have Shane Bieber, phenomenal pitcher for the Cleveland Indians, or if you just want to call him Cleveland baseball team, whatever at this point. It's hard. My natural instincts just to call them the Indians. But Bieber is a great pitcher. I picked him to win Cy Young last year. He did not. Picking him again this year, I think he's one of the better pitchers in the American League. Why not pick him? I think he's going to get a lot of wins on a decent to pretty good Cleveland team. And he's just straight up a good pitcher. So these are my predictions for the MLB season. If you liked this video, please like it. Leave your comments below. If you disagree with any of my predictions, put them in the comments down below. Tell me what you think is going to happen this season. Any crazy predictions, like someone setting a new record in something. So anyways, I'll catch y'all in the next video. And remember, Saturdays are for the boys. All right. See y'all.